Welcome back everyone to the Hello World Guy, and this is episode number, if I'm not wrong, it's episode number 4 of the Flappy Bird series. And if you remember, in the last video we had a pretty much complete Flappy Bird. So if I just hit play, you see that we have got a nice 4 tracking system, and we can flap, and of course we can flap, and pipes appear, and we can also have the game be over. The score increases and everything working. We have got a menu as well. We have got a play button. Everything is working. But the point is that our game doesn't really look that good because it's just basic colors, a yellow cube for the a yellow square for the player, red square for the pipe, and green square for the ground, and don't forget the blue one for the background. But now we actually need to change it and add some sprites. Now for this I have made a bunch of sprites, and those are I will give a link for you to download them in the description. And among these, this background one is that's the most important. That it's just a I have just cropped that one from the Sunnyland pack. So make sure to download that pack, and you can just crop it yourself as well, or you can download my version. Alright, and if I go under Flappy here, you can see that this has got everything is working. But one thing that I want to make sure is that except the background, you can the pack might not include the background sprite for obvious reasons, and you just what you need to do is just take whatever background you want, and you can just crop it to a 9:16 ratio. Alright, now one thing I want you to make sure is that all of these sprites, for example, this Flappy sprite should have a pixels per unit of 12, exactly 12, and make sure that for the filter mode it should be bilinear by default. Make sure it's point no filter, and make sure that there is no compression. This compression should be at normal quality by default. You should make it none. So none, no compression, filter mode point, which means no filter, and pixels per unit 12. Do the same for the pipe and also the ground. I haven't done that already, so I'm just going to. By the way, I should just, if you just unzip the file, you should get the sprite folder automatically. Alright, the pixels per unit is going to be 12, and make sure that the filter mode is point and no compression. Apply, and that's all nice. Now, to add the actual sprite, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my player, and you can see this is the sprite. Now make sure that the color is set to white because we don't want any overlay color, and drag this Flappy sprite in here. And as soon as you do that, it should appear perfect. And you might want to go under the scene view, and you might want to change the collider a bit because as you can see the sprite is kind of not exactly square. So I'm going to go under edit collider, then I'm going to move it until it's around here and here. Alright, that looks really awesome, and yeah, that's all good. So now if with that the player sprite is implemented, now what I'm going to do is open up the prefab folder and then go under pipe, and in here if I go under my scene view now, you can see that we have got this here. And if I go under sprite, I'm going to just select the one here, and make sure that its scale is not like this. It should be 111. And I just found out that a Y of 5.5 works better for my sprite. Just playing around with the values, we'll do that in a second actually. Just leave it at what it was, 5 before, and then drag the pipe sprite in here. Make sure that the color is set to white. As soon as you do that, what you should see is that the pipe appears and it looks really nice. And if I select this pipe, the actual pipe object, not the sprite, you can see that this is what it looks like. We have got this, and you can see that it's kind of not as thick as the previous one, and it kind of looks bad. I have just decided that after a little bit of testing, I came up with these values at 1.2, a scale of 1.2 on all axes makes for the best. By the way, you don't need Z, you can just make that one. Anyways, and as you can see, it's now here, but it's kind of overlapping with the actual trigger. Now that might be actually fine for you. Actually, we are going to leave it like that because the player should not be like it's not going to cause any problems. So I think that yeah, that's all right. And the one thing that you might want to do is go under edit collider and then make this quite a bit thinner, because we don't want the player to have the edges. It's fine if he just gets it in the middle, so just make it thin, the collider. You don't need to be that thick. Alright, with that then, what I'm going to do is select the second pipe, do the same thing. I'm going to go under here, make it white, then make sure that its scale is set to 1.2 and 1.2, and then drag the pipe script right in here. And as you can see, it's not the right way, facing the right way. Just make sure that the by scale is negative 1.2. Alright, that should work. So if I select my pipe, you can see we have got a nice thing here, yeah, and I can and this should actually work. But of course the colliders on our actual pipe are not working. So what I'm going to do for this is go under select my pipe, not the pipe, the actual sprite, this one object here, and then I'm going to go under here and I'm going to increase its size on the x to 1.2. Yeah, that seems alright actually. You might want to make it 1.3, I guess. Yeah, that makes a little bit more sense. Anyways, I'm going to increase its y until it's kind of alright, and you can see it's kind of it's actually right. So the values are, if you want exact values, it's 1.3 on the x, and on the y it's 6. That's what best works best for me. Just play around with the values, get something right, and you can see that the collider is working on both of these. With that done, if I play the game, then these should be working. Let's just test if they are actually working. So you can see that my player looks alright and disappears, and yeah, that's working. And if I collapse, that works. So yeah, that's all nice. So I think now it's time to add the ground and background. In order to do that, I'm going to do something really simple. Just go under here in the scene view, select this ground object that we have got here, make sure the white color, and then make sure that its scale is 1:1. Then drag the ground sprite in here and go under the scene view to check out how it looks. Pretty nice. So I think it needs to be a little higher. Maybe negative 4 is the negative 4.5 is like enough, and yeah, that looks pretty good. It's got a nice, we've got now a nice sprite in there, and yeah, that's pretty awesome. So if I actually try to increase the scale of the collider now by hitting this button, or you can just change it here. You can increase the scale to something like 7.5 on the x, and then you can increase it on the y to something like 1.75 or maybe 1.7. That's all right. So yeah, this is working, and if I just select this, you can see that it's almost perfect actually at this value. So I think you might want to do 6.5. Yeah, that looks better. And yeah, we have got a nice collider here for our ground, and that's working. So just to test, if I hit play, you should see that if I fall down to the ground and I don't flap, then the game is over and it looks all nice. Great. So now for the background, it's going to be really simple. What I'm going to do actually is select my main camera and then make sure that its background is set to complete black. Now what that will make sure is that if a screen is not exactly a 9:16 ratio, if a mobile screen it should be, but if doesn't match, then it will just show black bars to the left and right instead of having a lot of weird stuff going on. So it's going to be a bit better, and I'm going to just drag the background in here. And make sure that this background is like placed above. I mean, that doesn't matter. Ordering layer, you can set that negative one, make sure nothing goes over it, and then you can go under here, increase its size until it fits the whole screen. 4 is not enough. 4 point, you can just set it to 5. It doesn't really matter, and it's not actually that crisp. You might want to actually like it doesn't look that bad, but for our game I think it's nice if you change it to point no filter. And by the way, this should have a pixels per unit of 100. And oh, if giving you this error, make sure that it's no compression, and yeah, that should work. So it's all good, and I think you might want to reduce the color of the background a bit. Just make it a little darker. That looks better. And now we have got a nice working background as well. So if I hit play, so you should start to see the problem because let's just see. Okay, that's working, but it looks like that the player is actually flapping at a single place. That's because neither the background nor the ground is moving, which is totally bad. We need to fix that. Let's start with the ground, and in order to do that, what I'm going to do is go under the script folder, right click here, create a new C# script, and I'm going to call this one scroll. Scroll texture. Alright, this should actually scroll the texture. Well, and let's see, let's just add this to our actual ground object. So I'm going to select the ground, and you can see it's compiling still in the down here, and as soon as that finishes and it reloads the assemblies, then you can go ahead and add the script. And yeah, I'm just going to drag this in here, and scroll texture script is working. Okay, not the main camera, add it to the ground, scroll texture. Alright, now I am going to double click to open this script up in Visual Studio, and in here what we can do is we can remove these two. Then what we can do is we can remove the start method as well, and we need to do everything in the update method. Basically need to scroll the texture. Alright, so first of all, before we get to doing any of that, let me just create two variables here. One is going to be serialized. It's going to be a private float called speed, which will represent the speed of the texture scrolling. By default, I'm going to just set it to 1. And it, down here, what I'm going to do is create a private float here called time, and you will understand. Actually, we don't need that. There is a better way. And what we are going to do here is the way we actually do it. If I just use get component here, if I go render, then we should get whatever render this object has got, whether that be a sprite render, a mesh render, whatever. And if I go under here and get, you can use the material property, and then you can go dot, and in here you can say set offset, set texture offset, and this function takes a you can give it a name and a value. So for the value, let me just say new vector tool for now, just nothing. All right, and for the name, we need to give it the name of the texture, the actual name of the texture in the shader. Now I don't think that you understand shaders yet. You might, I mean, I can't say anything, but if I go under here and you can see that my player has got this Sprite default thing here, and if I just go under here and try to right click, and if I go under select shader, and that should automatically select the shader of this. Now if you go under here, you can see there are a bunch of properties and keywords here, and if I go under properties, you can see that there is this value called underscore main text, which represents the sprite texture, which means that this is the name that we need to use here. So just go here and type underscore main text, and yeah, and we can provide it with whatever offset we want. What I'm going to do is, let me just zoom in a bit so you can see it better. I'm going to go here, and for the f value, I'm going to say time, which gives it the time, and multiply that by our speed, and then 0. And yeah, this should actually pretty much work. And if I just let it compile, and I go here and I let me just go full screen before I hit play, and what you should see that it actually doesn't work. Let's see, and you can see that our floor is still not scrolling, and it actually seems like the pipes are coming towards us. So why is it not working, and how can we fix it? Well, in order to fix this, it's actually not long as to change the default material. What we need to do is right click here and create a new material, and just call it sprite scroll. I don't know, just call it sprite. This is the sprite material. We don't need only need for this for scrolling objects. It's going to be exact same as the default material. Let's go under shader and say sprite here and select that one, and that should cause everything to work. But now we could actually be able to change the properties of this, and the offset should work. So now if I hit play, what you should see is that, oh, it's still not working. Okay, let's see. Let me just select my ground, and in here we have got okay, the speed is set to 0. Set that to 1, and what you should see is that now it works, and our ground should start scrolling, and you can see indeed it does scroll, but you can see it's way too fast compared to the pipe, which makes it seem, well, very unnatural. So in order to fix that, you can play around with the values until you find that matches up, one that matches up. But for our setup, I think a speed of 0.475 exactly is pretty much alright. You can play around with the values to find out one that suits you the best, according to your speed of your pipes. But I think this is working, and yeah, the pipes do not seem like they're moving anymore. And of course, this should stop moving when the player dies, but yeah, we'll get that in a second. This is basically working. So in order to stop that, we are going to just go under here in the player script, and when the player dies here, before we destroy everything, all we need to do, we need to go for each, well, we need to actually repeat just this kind of for each loop. So if I just go here and I add this, and instead of saying for each pipe, we are going to say for each let me just first of all go under here, press Ctrl R twice, and this is going to be our scroll texture. Okay, just going to rename this, and this is going to be scroll texture in objects of type scroll texture. That's very nice, and yeah, this should actually work. And I'm just going to change it to scroll text because I don't know. Anyway, this is going to work, and it's going to disable everything that is scrolling in our scene. So yeah, that should actually function really much well. So if I go here and I hit play now, what you should see that as soon as the player dies, the ground stops moving. So when I start the game, the ground is moving, it's all nice, and the pipe seems very natural, but as soon as I die, the ground stops moving, and that's really nice. And now what we need to do is that we need to make the background move as well. Now what you might be tempted to do is just select this UI event, no, not UI event, select the background and then just drag that script we had. So if I select this and drag the scroll texture script to this as well, then make sure that if I hit play, should it actually work? Let us see if it does. If it does, then that would be surprising really. If not, that's nice. Anyways, we are going to go here and drag this sprite in here, and material, material, it needs to be our own custom material. And now what you should see is that it starts to work, but it's all right, I forgot a really important part. If for some reason your object was seeming stretched, make sure that in the sprites, uh, in the in the background and the ground, both of these should have a for the wrap mode, it should be repeat. For both of these, both of the scrolling object, the wrap mode should be set to repeat, or else it's going to cause a lot of problems. So now what you can see that it is working, but you can notice the seams and the hard edges here. And the reason that that is happening is that let me just show you a little bit better by making my player a trigger so that it doesn't actually collide into the object, so that we can take a good look at what's happening. Anyways, as you can see, if I just let my player go down, you can see that the background is moving, but it kind of has some really hard edges here. The reason for that is that this is not seamless. We cut the texture in half, which made it non-seamless, which is wrong, shouldn't happen. But the best way to fix this would be to make a seamless texture instead, and the actual full background of the series of the Sunnyland package is seamless. So what I encourage you to do is just use that background. So if I instead of using, instead of cropping it, just use that background and it will automatically be cropped by the camera. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to say, is that you should have a full background here, which will be seamless. So I imported the full background here, and remember, I will have a link to both the Sunnyland pack and my 3 assets here that I created myself as well. And make sure that this background has the same settings, 24 pixels per unit, repeat, point no filter, and no compression. Alright, with that done, you can see that this is a full image and it looks like this, and it is actually completely seamless. Oh, by the way, I actually made a little mistake. We used the sprite here, which is not exactly what you should use. You should use the unlit / texture shader. So just search for texture and choose that shader. Now you can see if I go ahead and move the X, then here it is seamless completely. Alright, so now what I can do is actually select, move this back and make sure that its origin layer is like -1. Alright, and then what I'm going to do is actually go under nice. Actually, you don't need to do that. Just go add component and add in a it's doing this. I can't believe that it's actually trying to load the mouse down event. Alright, go here and search for a scroll texture with the script that we just created, and speed should be 1 because the background is naturally going to be a little bit faster. And if I go under game now, and you can see it kind of looks normal, but it's going to be seamless, and yeah, that's going to be awesome. So yeah, it's working, and you can see that it's pretty awesome. And our ground and pipe go perfectly together, and our background is way too fast actually, but I think we can slow it down to something like 0.6. And yeah, that's working. But one thing that I would like to implement before I wrap up is that the player is currently not really looking that good. I mean, he's nice, but he should be facing the direction he's moving really. When he flaps, he should be moving. He should be facing, up, and when he falls down, he should be, looking down. That's what should happen. By the way, I'm just going to change the speed of this to 0.6 so that it looks a little bit more natural. And how can we implement that? Well, it's actually not that difficult, and we're going to do it in code. So yeah, let's do that. Oh, by the way, just changed it. I just changed this sprite back to Text Mesh Pro sprite because this one allows offset as well, and I was noticing that the texture was actually wasn't working with the sprite. It was always being displayed, behind everything else, which was not right. So yeah, just make sure it's Text Mesh Pro slash sprite. All right. With that done, let's go under this under Visual Studio, and let's try to code that behavior so that the player faces its direction. Oh, it's movement. So that's going to be extremely simple. What we are going to do is in after we have applied the flat velocity, and yeah, we are doing this here, but pipes handling that later. Anyways, what we are going to do here is that we are going to say and so if I go and say rigid get component rigid body dot velocity, so this is a method that will get us the velocity, and if I say float rotation is equal to this dot y, and now this dot y, and you can multiply that by a rotation amount, and you can make this value a serialized field. So yeah, I can go here and I can say maybe before this actually flat velocity. Nope. Let me add in a serialized field, a private float is equal to by default I'm just going to make it 2. It will be 2 times the amount of, which is not going to be a lot, but let's just see. On the lab velocity, it will depend on that. So anyways, what we are going to do here is that we are going to also I'm going to define another value here, a private float max rotation is equal to some, I'm going to by default make it something like 75, so let's just make it 75 degrees, and maybe 60 degrees. 75 is a lot. Okay, 60. So this will be 60 degrees. It won't be able to move beyond that, and in order to make it do that, we are going to just use a mathf.clamp here. Okay, and for the minimum value we are going to say minus max root. Let me just move this to separate line as well, and for this we are going to say max root. Alright, so this should work, and it should cause it to be constrained between negative 60 and 60 degrees. And what we can do here is we can say transform dot rotation is equal to quaternion dot Euler, and this should actually work. Intelligence is really great at guessing, but is in my mind right now. But yeah, this should actually work. So if I go under Unity and let's compile, what you should see is that our player now moves towards its rotation. It might not be perfect, but let's just test it out. So if I hit play, oh by the way, you can go full screen. I've told this many times before by pressing shift space, and you can see that it is actually not working. Let's see. No, it's not changing a single bit. Why? No idea. Also, let's go under here and select my player, and let's see what this amount is. Root amount is 2 and max rotation is 75. Well, let's just change this to something like 100. Let's just see what happens. So if I play and wait. Oh, okay, the problem is obvious, and I have found that out. That is that this is not supposed to be y, it's supposed to be on the z axis. So z is supposed to have this. Okay, yeah, and that should actually work. Okay, let's compile, then go under here, and if I hit play now, you should see that the player turns, but it will be very slight. Let's just see, and you can see it's actually working. It kind of looks weird, but it's working, and I think that 2 is way too less. Just make it 5, and let's see what it looks like. Increase the height, increase and make it full screen, and yeah, that's working. And our now you can see that if I restart, you can see that it's kind of feeling really nice to play. So now we have got a complete Flappy Bird with everything in place except sound. And in the next video, which is going to be the final part of this, part number 5, we are going to add that, and then we are going to make our game like build it for Android, and then we are going to play it on you can play it on your phone or whatever. It's going to be really nice. So I will see you in the next video. Make sure to like and subscribe. Check out my other developers channel. Just posted a video yesterday, and I will see you tomorrow. Make sure to like and subscribe, and bye.